welcome to Majority Rules. This is season 1, episode 13, a podcast about Mizzou athletics majorities, which is Olympic sports athletes. Most of the gang is back together. We've lost an Abigail, but we've gained a new member, Quentin.
Hello.
He wanted to cover women's basketball just so that he could be on this podcast. I think
exactly. Yes.
That is exactly what he said.
I'm not as cool as Abigail, but happy to be here.
So I am your host, Karen Steger. I am the softball, gymnastics, and sometimes swim, though not that much so far. It's mostly been Rory, beat writer at rockmnation.com, and I'm also the Olympic sports manager. And then let's go to Rory, and why don't you say your name, what you cover, and if you did anything fun during this bye week of no Mizzou football.
Hey guys, I'm Rory Whetstone. I've been covering swim recently. Earlier this season, I did women and men's golf, but they're on a bit of a break now. The weekend was stress-free because there was no Mizzou football. I lived a peaceful Saturday. No, it was a lot of fun. Halloween's always a blast. I love getting to dress up with my friends, so it was fun.
What did you dress up as?
Taylor Swift was one. That was my big one. That was my in memoriam of the concert. I did Queen of Hearts.
You didn't get to it.
Queen of Hearts one day. And then there's another one. I think I just threw a hockey jersey I have on. I was like, well, what do we have that's free that I don't need to go buy? So
I like that. I'm a proponent of lazy Halloween costumes.
It was my Islanders jersey too. They're scary, so they're bad, scares me. It's fine. It worked.
Now, was it the current Islanders or like the scary, like Gorton's Fishermen?
No, it's like the current Islanders, just as scary because of how bad they've been recently. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Matthew, to you.
All right. I am Matthew Gustafson, the Rock M Nation volleyball and wrestling and baseball for like a couple of weeks there in fall ball. And again in the spring, I'm going to be the backup to Rory there. So busy couple of days for me with volleyball and wrestling back to back. Thankfully, no volleyball today because that would be 3 straight days and a lot of chaos. But what did I do over the weekend? Well, after the wrestling match, went over to a friend's for just like a small like Halloween party get together type thing.
Nice. Yeah. Did you think about Mizzou football at all in its absence?
Not really.
Good call. Dylan, what about you?
So my name is Dylan Henrik. I covered soccer, but that is officially closed the book on that. But now we are fully in women's basketball mode as they start their season this week. Like Matthew, I also hung out with some friends Friday and Saturday, spent a lot of time just enjoying being around people and kind of taking a break. First week without a full soccer match. It was very strange, but other than that, I did not think a lot about Mizzou football over the bye week either. Glad we have a week off, but glad to get a home game once again.
I think our last member probably still did significant amount of thinking about our football team, unfortunately, given his job.
Yeah. No,
welcome, Quentin.
I'm Quentin Corpuel. I am one of the football and men's basketball writers for Rock M Nation. Last year, I helped cover football, men's and women's basketball. I also cover softball for Missouri on SI. I did do a little bit of thinking about Mizzou football over the weekend, but not too much. I was more keyed in on the other games that were happening. I was flipping back between Miami and Duke because Miami is the other college team that has been heavily in my life. My parents met there, so I was raised a Hurricane. I got a Miami hat right there, and there. So I was a little worried at first. They went down by 11 late into the game, but Cam Ward's that guy. And they figured it out, and they are still undefeated. So that was good. And then I was also keyed in on Ohio State, Penn State. That was a very good game as well. But yeah, Halloween weekend was fun. I think there were technically 2 here at Mizzou because Halloween fell on a Thursday. I don't think we should do that again.
No.
I think we should just have 1. That's enough for me.
Awesome. I did not think about football at all during the bye week. I haven't turned on the TV to watch any football. And since the Chiefs are on tomorrow night, I'm not going to watch any football then either because I'll be watching men's and women's basketball. Yeah, so my bye week was stress-free.
It's okay. I get a break of Mizzou, and then I got to watch the Bears play in an hour, so the stress comes right back.
Yep. Although, Karen, I feel like the bye week, Friday night especially counts as part of the weekend. So not necessarily completely stress-free for you.
That's true, but good things came of it. And we'll get to that right now. Hey, it's time for in-season sports updates. And we're going to start with Matthew and volleyball and the biggest win for the Tigers since 2016.
For the first time since 2016, the Missouri Tigers took down a top 10 team. Not only did they do that, they took down the two-time defending national champions, Texas, on the road in Austin. This is a massive win for the program. You would have to check my stats, but I believe the first time that Mizzou has actually taken a set from a top 10 team, let alone winning a match against one during the Dawn Sullivan era. It was an instant classic, 5 sets. It went down to the wire. Almost every single set was pretty competitive up until near the end of it. Why don't we get into it? Mizzou loses the first set 25-21. They bounce back 25-19 in set 2, lose 25-17 in set 5, take set 4 26-24. They came this close to blowing a pretty sizable lead, and then they end up winning pretty comfortably in set 5, 15-10 in front of nearly 4,500 fans at Gregory Gymnasium in Austin. The Tigers hitting 224 for this match compared to 256 for Texas. 28 attack errors, a little bit of a high number there compared to 20 for Texas. And, you look at the stats, Texas had twice as many blocks. They had more digs than Mizzou. Looking just at those stats, you would think Texas probably wins it. Not the case. Mizzou finds a way to grit out this win, and after that first set, Karen, I told you, I think we're going to learn a lot about this team and their ability to face up against elite competition in set 2. And they showed they have that ability. They went out red hot early, got to a 8-1 lead, ended up winning it 25-19, took the final 4 points of that set. Mizzou kept it somewhat close for most of that fourth set before Texas kind of pulled away. Third set before Texas kind of pulled away at the end. And Mizzou in set 4 took a pretty comfortable lead, 23-19. 4 points at that point, and the match only 2 away from the set victory. You think you pretty much have it sealed. Texas immediately goes on a 3-0 run, cuts the deficit to 1. You stretch that up to a 5-1 run, and they've tied it at 24. But then Kinele Akana had a service error, set point Mizzou, and they took advantage. Jordan Iliff with the kill to send it to set 5. It was back and forth early on. Texas leading 7-6, but then Mizzou went on a 3-0 run with 3 straight kills by Michael Vernon to lead 9-7. Texas getting it within 1 once more with a kill by Jenna Wennis, but then Mizzou going on a massive 4-0 run. It's kind of like going on a 10-0 run in a full set because set 5 is first to 15. A 4-0 run late in the set to have a 14-9 lead. Madison Skinner, the All-American, got 1 final kill for Texas, but then an attack error on Mariana Singletary of Texas clinched the massive win for the Tigers. Looking at the stats, Jordan Iliff leading the team with 18 kills, also led the team with 15 digs. Michael Vernon, 16 kills, had 10 digs as well. Both of them hitting under 200. Actually, I think the best hitter in this match, Janet Demaray, 15 kills on a 290 hitting percentage. Very efficient for Demaray. given the volume that she had. Emory has struggled with efficiency at times, but she was absolutely key to that win, in addition to Vernon with 4 kills and an ace in set 5. But the player of the match, without a doubt, in my opinion, Marina Crownover. Now, I interviewed her on Thursday before the match, Marina. Austin native, transferred in from Texas, right? She said a win here would mean everything to her. She said she was texting, her friends or former teammates saying, you better watch out. You're going to lose. You're going to take a loss. And she actually did it. Like, she actually followed through with it. And she was a key piece of the victory. 51 assists, 10 digs, a double-double. She also had 2 blocks, 2 aces, and the most impressive part to me, 6 kills on 7 attempts for an 857 aiming percentage. I believe that her career high prior to this was 2 or 3, maybe 4 at most. So to have 6 kills like she did, she was absolutely incredible when it came to 50-50 balls at the net. She would win nearly every single time. Very strong presence at the net, despite, not being very tall for an SEC setter. So Crownover, incredibly impressive. This defense as well. I've talked about it. I'm going to keep talking about it. I checked the stats today. In conference games in the SEC, Mizzou is in the top 6, both in hitting percentage and in opponent hitting percentage. This has been one of the better defenses in the SEC in conference play, in addition to allowing the 4th fewest aces by opposing teams. So the biggest weaknesses from non-con, they have come a very long way. And this defense continues to get better and better. The offense has been slumping a little bit. They are no longer tops in the SEC in hitting percentage. They still lead in kills and assists. But you have some opportunities against a little bit of a lower tier competition. Still quality competition. SEC is very good this year. But I would expect them to have some better offensive performances in the next couple of games. Looking big picture, this team now 7-2, tied for first in the SEC. A conference title is completely within reach. They beat Texas. They have the tiebreaker. Now, Kentucky also tied for first. They have the tiebreaker over Mizzou. They had a very comfortable win in Lexington, but that was at the very beginning of conference play, a completely different team from what we've been seeing recently. And Mizzou has an opportunity to play Kentucky late in the season in Columbia. If Mizzou runs the table, it's unlikely, but it is possible. If Mizzou runs the table, they will win the SEC.
That's awesome. Before you get to looking ahead, I was going to, since this video is short, I thought I would share it. It was cinematic as hell, you guys. It was like the ending of a movie.
Oh, and by the way, Maya Sands, if I remember my stats correctly, I was checking them earlier, now second in the SEC in digs.
Nice. So what is coming up for the Tigers?
It's been a couple of weeks where they've been on the road. They are returning home on Wednesday. They're going to have a showdown with Georgia, who has had kind of a disappointing season so far. But that is going to be 7 p.m. It's going to be block party and student org night. And then on Sunday, they're going to have a match at 5:30 against South Carolina. That's going to be Alumni Day and First Responders Appreciation. It's a 3-match homestand. They're going to have a big match on next Friday against Florida, currently in the top 25. But looking at this year, Mizzou currently averaging 2,551 fans per match, which they are on a track to beat last year's attendance. And they have been completely hammering home. They want to pack the Hearn Center this week. They've lowered the ticket prices. They have all these different promotions and giveaways that they're doing. They're really promoting it on social media as well. So the current high this year, high in attendance, I believe was about 3,400, something like that. I would not be at all shocked if they got at least 35, if not broke 4,000 fans at the match on Wednesday. Because, when I've talked to people that I know who are Mizzou people, who are Mizzou fans, like Mizzou sports, but they haven't really been to volleyball, they are talking about Mizzou volleyball. They're saying, I have to get to one of these matches now. And I wouldn't be shocked if that is the response of a lot of people right now, and especially students. I think that you're going to see a pretty packed student section the next couple of matches, especially if this 7-match winning streak continues.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm taking my parents next Sunday to the South Carolina one, and they're really fired up about it. So as for what you're working on, Matthew, who may be your next target for your Over the Net series?
So we are looking to set it up. I've reached out about interviewing Janet Demaray this week.
Nice.
She will be, I believe, the first person to return from last season's edition.
Oh, yeah.
So new format, but, especially after, like I said, 15 kills, 290 hitting percentage was the best offensive performance in that Texas match. And I do want to note, I haven't said yet, Mizzou, currently receiving votes in the AVCA poll, will be almost certainly ranked in the top 25 when the new poll comes out on Monday, right? They're already in the top 25 in RPI. They're 24th. I would be surprised if they didn't move up to at least 20 in the RPI, if not higher. After that, I think that somewhere between 18 and 22 is probably a realistic range for where Mizzou may end up. But again, as we saw in the blind rankings that I did on Twitter, and I polled people in Rock M, polled some other people that I know did it for my show on KCOU, the team is currently rated a little bit lower than maybe their blind resume would suggest by the AVCA. So you never really know what's going to happen with the AVCA poll. Maybe they get ranked 23 through 25, somewhere in there. But I would expect.
But also when you did that, the blind ranking, that was before the Texas.
That was before the Texas match, yes. And that's
rank us, cowards.
The biggest issues with Mizzou's resume right now were record against top 25 teams and a loss to South Dakota State. South Dakota, USD, the Coyotes. Now, the top 25 record thing, much less of a concern now, right? You beat a top 10 team. Not many teams that were unranked at that point can say they've beaten top 10 teams. And the other issue, the South Dakota loss, is now much less of a concern because of that top 25 win, right? That is the crown jewel in your tournament resume right now. And it is a bigger crown jewel than a lot of teams will have. And it really kind of negates some of the concerns that you had from earlier this year, because this team, again, continues to look better and better and looks completely different than they did the first 2 matches of SEC play and in the non-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Moving on. Swim and dive.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Rory.
Hi.
You got to see a really freaking exciting meet. Oh my God. I was working during that time.
Yeah, not as positive as Matthews, just because they did come away with a win. Both teams lost by a score of 168 to 132, but honestly, not the focus of what you should be looking at with this team.
Sure.
Ton of personal best, like a ton of personal bests. I think I counted like 15 to 20, like probably more in that range. Here's some wins from that first break. Lena Bank, I can't even explain the talent that she has in the
She's
pool.
a sophomore.
Exactly. Like, and a ton of this talent on this team is coming from these young kids, especially freshmen. We can talk about that later with the 1,000 freestyle, but it's her third straight multi-win performance. She hasn't lost the 100 breast or the 200 breast yet. Not trying to jinx anything, but like she just blows the competition right out of the water. It's so fun to watch her swim. Grant Pachensky's another one who's continued to dominate. He's normally taken the 100 back and 100 free as well. They were big underdogs coming into this meet. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they stayed in it for so long, and a big difference to me with A&M versus Purdue was with Purdue, they came out in that 400 relay and the 1,000 freestyle, and they took those events. The men swept the 1,000 freestyle last week, and then their momentum kind of tapered throughout the rest of the meet. The energy just kind of wasn't the same. Grevers talked about that after the fact, that a big goal of theirs was to keep that energy up throughout the entire meet. And on the flip this week, they dropped those first two events, and it didn't phase them. I mean, the men just then went on this streak and didn't let up. So they came back into that meet towards the very end. It kind of fell apart again with those relays towards the end, but incredibly impressive. Philip Peschke, he's a freshman. He had his first individual win of his career. You had that also with Alex, I'm going to try to say his name right, Oceanbine.
Something like that. Yeah, he's a redshirt freshman.
He redshirted last year, so he had his first individual win as well. So many just personal records of this team. So I spoke to him after the meet on Friday, and his takeaway was just the fact that there were a ton of lifetime bests and personal bests, and the fact that they're cranking these out so early in the season has them so hyped moving forward. He said they're in a really rough training block right now, which gives them a really solid 2 weeks to be even more prepared for when they go to Georgia. But I mean, I could just go on and on. You've got Jan Zubik, who won the 100 fly and 200 back. He's insane. This team, I mean, Grevers said it towards the beginning of the year. They had a lot of potential. It was just how they used it. The talent in this group is off the charts. And I think Missouri is kind of making their way back into that conversation about their swim team is something you need to watch out for.
Mm-hmm. And if I can just add something, I was there for a brief amount of time, and something that I noticed, and even just following along afterwards, is, they don't really get blown out in a lot of these events. Mm-hmm. Like, there are maybe a few where you'll see A&M go 1-2 or sweep, but a lot of the time, if A&M had the top, swimmer in that event, Mizzou would take 2 and 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if Mizzou won, it would be 1 and 3, or they would take 1 and 2. So they're competitive in almost every single event, even if they don't win it.
There was only 1 or 2 events too where like A&M might have won by like a body length, but pretty much every single event, I mean, it was up till that touch against the wall. Like it was always competitive.
Because you said even the longer events, like the 400 IM, the 500, stuff like that those are traditionally, those are not really closely contested races. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you said that they were coming down like to the wire is really cool.
There were a couple, I'm trying to think of exactly who it was. I mean, it was a Mizzou swimmer. She ended up winning the event, but she was kind of behind the entire meet, just wasn't letting up. And that flip turn on her final 25 shot her like a whole head in front of an Aggie swimmer. So, I mean, and normally in events like the 500 or 400, as you say, it's kind of ones where you can look away for a little bit. When you turn your attention back to the pool, nothing's really changed. I mean, I grew up around swim because of my younger brother, and that's what I feel like I was used to. And with this meet on Friday, it was like you had to stay glued. Otherwise, you were going to lose where everybody was.
And I mean, A&M is a top 20 program.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on men's and women's.
Oh, yeah.
That is.
Mm-hmm. It was a really fun meet.
Well, and the other thing that seems like it keeps getting them is diving.
Yes.
So like Collier Dyer, great diver, but like he'd get first or second, but then like A&M would take all the rest of the.
as Matt,
spots are the same thing for the women.
yeah, as Matthew kind of mentioned that when it's in like the pool there, like for swim, it's if A&M takes the top spot, you've still got like 2, 3, 4, and you're still getting points from those swimmers. Or with dive, you've got Dyer who took second in both the 1 and 3 meter over the weekend, but then your next Mizzou swimmer doesn't come until like 3 spots down, and you're getting maybe a point out of it, which is kind of looking like that separation from both this week and Purdue. But it'll kind of be interesting to see what changes based on who they have meets again moving forward. Also, they were in tech suits this week, which if you don't know what that is, they're normally longer suits. They're tighter. You glide through the water much faster, which is why you see time improvements. But I want to say the women wore their tech suits against Arkansas.
They
still,
did.
Yeah, still had they had a ton of improvements from their times in Arkansas. And then the men wore their tech suits for black and gold, and they also had a ton of improvements.
Yeah.
Too. So it's not just like the tech suits are improving their times from Purdue. Most of the times that they're beating out this year are from when they've also previously worn tech suits.
And from most of them now are beating out times that they got at black and gold, which was at the beginning of their tough training.
Yeah.
And it seemed like I felt like it was going to be a while before we got to that point again where they were getting close to those times, but they were I felt like I was like, oh, this updating this spreadsheet's not going to take very long.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God. These are like all best
times. And you were like, hold on. Wait, no, give me 5 minutes.
I wanted to bring up, there was somebody that I had messaged you guys about who I was like, I've never even heard of this name of this guy that placed. And he's a diver.
Oh.
And a swimmer.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, what is happening right now? It was his last name it's like Tommaso.
Oh, Zanella, yeah. He had personal best in the 1 meter and 3 meter.
Yeah, but he also is a swimmer. Where is I'm scrolling back through it because I seriously was like, I don't even know who this guy is. Yeah, I wrote, I don't even know who this Zanella character is. And he won the 100 fly.
Yes, I do remember that now that you say that.
And it's also a diver. I was like, okay.
Interesting. But another big one just to mention before just moving forward is that 1,000 freestyle. So I have kind of a section in the article just about this that'll come out after this podcast is done, just about the freshman group that this team has. Katie Griesick, her 1,000 freestyle, 4, because if you count the black and gold, it'd be 4 meets through the season. She's already at 3rd all time in Missouri history. Then you have Danielle Gleason, who's now 4th all time. Zoe Schneider is 6th all time, and Peyton Drexler is 10th all time. 2 of them are freshmen, 2 of them aren't, but the 2 that are freshmen are 3rd and 4th all time in the Missouri history books for the 1,000 freestyle.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy looking at that. Like I knew that Katie Griesick was in there, but then I was like, wait, all the rest of these all swam under 10 minutes too and are now on this list.
Excuse me. Danielle Gleason dropped 12 seconds off of her time as well from last week.
Crazy.
Or about 2 weeks ago. It was Arkansas. But yeah, that's just not like 12 seconds in swim is.
And in college, it's real crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Insane. So you said that next up for them is the Georgia Invitational.
They're in 2 weeks. They're going to Athens, Georgia. Yes.
I'm assuming since it's a multi-day meet, they'll be facing off against a variety of
I believe
teams,
so.
but I didn't see who the other teams were.
It doesn't say on, like, if you go to their site, I don't think, like Georgia, it just says Georgia Invitational. But the fact that it says Invitational, it's multiple days, I'm assuming it's going to be more than just Georgia. So So
Yeah, so that'll be really excited. I'm assuming they'll be wearing tuxedos for that meet.
I
too.
would
That'll-
assume
That'll
so.
be a big one.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you. It's been
course.
super fun to like pay attention to how they're doing, and I can't wait to get to see them in person myself again.
Yeah.
If they'd stop having meets on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Maybe work that out in the schedule.
Right?
Reverse. All right. Thank you, Rory.
Of course.
On to women's basketball. Our dynamic duo, Dylan and Quentin.
True statement. I agree. Yeah, women's basketball, excuse me, is officially back. Had the first exhibition last week, a 50-point win over Truman State, put up 112 points, just utter offensive domination. Grace Slaughter came out swinging early. She had the first 7, finished in high double digits. Same with Ashton Judd. Those two clearly looked to lead the team, but it was really encouraging. The rotation from top to bottom looked really solid. Everyone who saw time made a positive impact in some capacity. Did not see freshman Mariah Vincent, as she's still recovering from an ACL injury, not a tear, but one that she suffered over the summer, so her status is in doubt for the foreseeable future, but should be back this year. Tiana Heron was also not available as she was dealing with some personal matters, so she was not in town for that matchup. Everyone else played. Everyone else contributed. A little surprising for me, at least, to see Hannah Linthicum in the starting lineup over Angie Gullah-Kalundi, the grad student, but made a pretty good impact, showed she just looks taller, stronger, like a true 5 in the SEC now. So there were a lot of new changes, a lot of new players, but everything seemed to go A-okay in those first 40 minutes of the season.
Yeah, Dylan, you bring up Hannah Linthicum. I was also very curious to see if she would start over Angie or if it'd be the other way around. I'm not as surprised as y'all are. I mean, last year she was involuntarily thrown into the fire as the primary defender of the rim against probably the toughest collection of centers in probably the country. I'd say it's at least arguable. It's never easy guarding, Camila Cardoso. But she talked to me at Media Day about how she learned from those experiences. And as Dylan mentioned, she looks physically stronger. That's going to be a huge deal, again, in a league where there are still very talented players down low. And so the one of the areas of Hannah Linthicum's game I'm curious to see if it develops at all is her 3-point shot. If she is able to stretch the floor, I think that'd be a huge deal for Mizzou because the 4s and the 5s have, at least recently, not been the best shooters, and that can completely change an offense if you have to respect all 5 players on the floor from downtown. I think there was that one explosion Linthicum had. I believe it was against Kansas City last year where she scored 20 and hit most of her shots. I think she hit a couple of 3s in that game. That would be a big deal if she's able to develop that a little bit more. She said at Media Day that she would like to develop that part of her game more. Now it's just about putting it into action. But as Dylan said, a lot of good from a 50-point exhibition win. I think everybody but Abby Schreck scored. That would have been
Abby, man. She wasn't even a starter.
Yeah, no, that would have been nice to see everybody score. But even Lucia Milkovic, I think, hit double digits.
Yeah,
which I did not have on my bingo card before the game started, but that was a pretty positive development.
She had 10. Hilke had 10.
Yeah, the sugar was spread pretty well. And so I think if you want to talk about season-long themes before the season opener tomorrow at Vermont, because that's happening. One of the things I was looking for in the exhibition game was who was going to shoulder the scoring burden, especially with the departure of Haley Frank, who had been the go-to late clock option over the past couple of seasons. And right now, it looks to be Grace Slaughter and Ashton Judd as a 1A, 1B in terms of shouldering that scoring burden. I think it was mostly Grace that was taking on those, hey, can you please get a basket? There's like 5 seconds left in the shot clock and we need something to happen. I think we could tell last year that Grace was sort of the heir apparent to Haley Frank, and Ashton Judd, I guess, as well. But yeah, there were a lot of possessions where Slaughter either went to work in the post or tried to drive to the basket to make something happen late in the shot clock. I'd say she was pretty successful. She had a really hot start. I think she scored the first 7 points of the game for Mizzou. And she was scoring in all kinds of different ways. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that was a pretty sweet layup by Hoka fell drop it. I was not having any expectations for what she could be. She's kind of a wild card. But yeah, that was a pretty sweet dish by Lucy and a pretty sweet finish by Hoka.
She's like that. It kind of was like, is it the Shaq meme that's like, I'm sorry, I was not familiar with your game. Yeah. That's how I felt. Like I was like, what?
No, there were moments last season where Hoka would go like, I don't know, if you watch the NBA, there would be some possessions where like J.R. Smith or Dion Waiters, possessions they had no business creating a crazy shot. They would just do it. And there were a few possessions where Hilka did that. I was sitting there like, whoa, did not know she had that in her. And like that layup, I was sitting in the media section next to Dylan. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. So was there anybody else's performances that you were, despite it being an exhibition game, that either one of you were kind of like, okay, I can see what they're trying to do with bringing this person on board?
Oh, I was thinking more, okay, newcomers, I'll have to give you a better answer once I think of one, but Ashton Judd shot a perfect 6 of 6 from the field. Nice. And that was very encouraging because she had a lot of games last year where she was very inefficient on high volume, and that did not help Mizzou's offense at all. There were plenty of games where she would be at 2 of 10 from the field, 0 of 6 from 3. The shooting form looked fine, and she was taking good shots. They just wouldn't go in. Yeah. And so now I think this season, especially as an upperclassman and as one of the de facto top scoring options on the team, she's going to have to lessen those games where she is 2 of 14. Like she was against Kansas State last year and 0 of 6 from 3. I think she was at least one time last year. If she's able to become a little more efficient while maintaining high volume, I think that would pay very high dividends.
In terms of newcomers, like I can take over for you here, Q. There were 2 that really impressed me. The one true newcomer, Nia Wilson. She appears to be running point for this team now. Obviously, Mama Dembele has moved on. There's only one Mama Dembele in the world. She was so active defensively, so quick. Her shooting ability, major question mark. But when you look at the way Nia Wilson plays, she plays with that pace. She plays with that speed. Maybe not as active defensively, but not a bad defender by any stretch. And she also is able to slash to the rim, able to finish with some efficiency, also able to shoot from outside if she needs to. Didn't need to put up any threes, but had a couple nice mid-range buckets. And Demilah Brown, not really a newcomer, but our first time seeing her. She's going to be playing a lot more off ball, and I was not expecting her to be this much of a shooting threat.
Oh my God, those 2 threes that she hit back to back were beautiful.
Back to back contested threes, 3 of 4 from beyond the arc. So whether they have her in the starting lineup or off the bench, just that sort of consistent shooting. If she can be a 38 to 40% 3-point shooter, just being able to get that consistency and take some of that pressure off of players like Judd and Slaughter and stretch that court out is going to be huge. And so if Demilah Brown can't really be that 3-point threat that I think she can be, this Mizzou team is just going to be able to push teams out, continue to wear down their bench just with the depth that they have in this lineup.
Yeah, that'll be especially important considering that someone like Grace Slaughter loves to go to work down low. That causes defenders to collapse. And Grace's playmaking, I believe, is good enough to where if Mizzou has capable shooters on the outside, they're probably going to be left open as a result of her just existence on the low block. I think that is going to be huge. And I'm curious to see in a regular season setting in a road game against a pretty good Vermont team that was 1 win away from the NCAA tournament last year and is projected to finish, I believe, 3rd the America East this year. And so this is not this isn't a cakewalk. This is far from it, even though there's the Ben & Jerry's factory about 30 minutes away from Vermont's campus. This is not going to be cake or ice cream or any other delicious treat. This is going to be a tough challenge. And so I'm curious to see
how syrupy, sweet victory for the Tigers.
Better hope they don't go ice cold from the field.
Hope they don't get into sticky situations. Could go all day, folks. So tell me real quick, what are some things you're looking to see from the Tigers in their upcoming games? Like we said, they play Vermont tomorrow at 5 p.m. ESPN Plus. And then they play Southern University on Thursday at 6:30 and Norfolk State on Sunday at 2. What are some things you're kind of looking for based on what you've seen so far in just that one matchup?
Taking care of the basketball, that is going to be a really big deal because Robin Pinchton's teams have historically not been that good at taking care of the basketball. They did a really good job in the exhibition against Truman State of doing that. They won the turnover battle 22-6. But again, turnovers have plagued this team for what feels like forever. And so if they can translate the kind of ball security they showed in the exhibition to the regular season, that's going to be great because that creates more possessions for yourself and that limits the amount of possessions for the other team. I'll throw in a second thing besides taking care of the basketball. And for me, that's going to be defending off ball. They got beat on backdoor cuts a lot last season. That was a real problem on defense, is either communication or just getting caught ball watching. That was a huge problem. Dylan and I saw that firsthand at SLU last season. They were beat on so many backdoor cuts. It was crazy. And what didn't help is that the SLU band was about 5 feet away from us, behind us, where like my hats are behind me. That's where the SLU band was. And every time they would get beat on a backdoor cut, they would score. The SLU band would play. My ears would hurt. My head would hurt even more. So that was.
I guess
great.
They scored a lot, huh?
Yes, 93 whole points. It was not a good time for Robin Pinchton's crew. But even in the exhibition, there were a handful of possessions where somebody got beat backdoor. And that is going to continue to happen unless Mizzou fixes it. And so I'm curious to see if Vermont tries a bunch of stuff off the ball, because Mizzou's been exploited on it, especially against mid-majors in the recent past. And if they keep getting beat on it, that is only going to lower their ceiling on defense.
Yeah, I think another main area of focus is going to be the paint presence for this team, both offensively and defensively. Just by a logical standpoint, the SEC is going to have much better bigs than the majority of mid-majors. So Mizzou should be coming in, whether it's Hannah Linthicum, Angelique Alakalundy, they should be the best person in the paint in that matchup. So like you said, if they are getting beat on those back door cuts on defense, what can that rim protector do, whether it's Hannah or Angie, to really deter them, keep them away from the basket? And like you said, no easy layups. A big problem for this team was constantly getting blocked and not getting enough blocks on the other end. So being able to control that rim presence and deter some of these teams from easy shots. And then offensively, Angie, I believe she either hit double digits or was near double digits in the exhibition. Hannah Linthicum was a perfect 2 for 2. But what can this lineup do to get into the paint, to get some more of those easy buckets? Obviously, like Hugh mentioned, Grace Slaughter, very talented in the post. If you get her anywhere within 5 feet of the basket, she's probably scoring. So how do you create more opportunities and more of those mismatches for her when she can use some of those spins, those post moves, Euro steps, jabs, any of that those types of moves to her advantage to create some of those easy opportunities at the basket? Because it's not rocket science. The closer you are to the bucket, the easier it is to score.
I think Angie was perfect from the field too, if I'm not mistaken.
I
She
believe
scored
so.
like 13 points or something like that. So
They shot,
nice.
they shot like 60% in the exhibition. I think it was like 75% in the first quarter. Crazy.
Yeah, they had a really easy time scoring in the paint. Like, it was really, really easy. I don't think that's going to happen in the regular season, but
Right. It's like exhibition, but still fun. I'm glad that women's basketball's back. Tomorrow should be a national holiday, Hoops Day. Let's go to Matthew again as wrestling had their first matchup at Northern Colorado. If you want to give us some quick takeaways on that.
Yep, Mizzou winning 25-14 out in Greeley, Colorado against a pretty scrappy Northern Colorado team, including the former NCAA champion Andrew Aliris, who was making his return to the mat after taking an Olympic red shirt last season. Why don't we start off talking about the true freshmen who got into this match? Rocky Elam, Noah Certain, both out due to injury. Aiden Sinclair and Gage Walker, the true freshman, stepping in at 197 and 125. 197 actually where the match ended up beginning. Aiden Sinclair getting the 1911 major decision, showed a lot of promise on offense. Now, he wasn't really able to score any back points. Franklin Cruz was escaping really quickly. He wasn't really able to rack up any riding time, but a pretty promising showing for somebody making their first ever collegiate start and their first ever collegiate match. So overall, a solid result. Gage Walker going up against potential All-American in Steve O'Poulin, and it went about as you would expect for a true freshman in his first match facing an All-American. He basically got thrown to the wolves, but he actually did pretty well. He avoided giving up a major decision, and really that's what the team was hoping for with that. Other new faces in the lineup at heavyweight, Seth Nitzel taking care of business, got an 11-4 decision. You know, he was really good on top in this matchup. He rode out the entire second period. He had something like close to 4 minutes in riding time, and he got a couple of takedowns too, showed that he's faster than Zach Elam, kind of a little bit shiftier, has more finesse. He gave up a reversal in the final seconds, though. That kind of cost him. He could have had a major decision, and he ended up, like I said, giving up that reversal. So kind of a costly mistake there. Jay Conway going up against Vinny Zerbin, a very good wrestler for Northern Colorado, loses an 8-4 decision. Kind of not as close as it seemed. Conway was losing by more, but did a nice job to get a takedown in the final minutes. The big one, Cam Steed, incredibly impressive. He got a victory by fall. He pinned his opponent, Dacian Poe, in the first 30 seconds of the match. He put Mizzou up 16 points, which were absolutely crucial to getting the win. Very impressive. He's got a ton of upside. He just has to stay healthy.
What weight class is he?
He is 165. So he is replacing Keegan O'Toole, who's moved up to 174. Now, talking about the returners, Cade Moore, didn't really see him fully healthy for a lot of last season. And he isn't really fully healthy yet. It was uncertain if he would or wouldn't wrestle in this match. And he ended up losing 16-5 on a major decision. He actually looked like the better wrestler. The first 3 minutes had a 3-1 lead entering the second period, but got dominated in final two. Maybe a case where just he's returning from that injury. Maybe he doesn't have the full gas tank yet. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Josh Edmond loses 12-2 in a major decision to Andrew Lirez. Like I said, former national champion. He's kind of in a class of his own at 141, so not too shocking. Edmond just really wasn't able to generate any offense. Maybe he had a couple of decent shots, but Lirez was able to catch him pretty easily. And then at the end, Edmond was just trying to avoid giving up that major decision, and he just continued to back away from Lirez over and over again, which he ended up giving up the major decision anyway. He got called for stalling twice, giving up 2 points, so not the best result for him. Logan Joffrey coming back, big 7-4 decision over Benji Alanis, avoiding the upset. He was down 4-1 in the third period. He had just gotten taken down. He got a reversal, rode out the rest of the period after the reversal, of course, overtime, and then he just had more left at that point, ended up getting that match-winning takedown. And then 2 more to talk about. Colton Hawks looked pretty good over in a 9-1 major decision over AJ Heeg. He was wrestling pretty passively. Ended up getting called for stalling. I think Heeg was penalized 4 points, which is kind of insane. 4 stalling points being called on somebody who tells you that they just are not really wrestling at all. And then Hawks got a pretty big takedown and ended up getting a major decision. Nice result for him. Keegan O'Toole 174, first time we're seeing him in college at 174, bumping up, looked exactly like he has at 165, just 9 pounds heavier. Like that was really the main difference. Led 9-2 after the first period, 3 takedowns, had just turned a minute of riding time, added 2 more takedowns right out the second period for 2 minutes, 12 seconds of riding time, and heading into the third period. O'Toole started bottom, got an escape first 15 seconds. He actually had to play a little bit of defense for the first time really in the match. McElhinney got kind of in deep on a single leg, but O'Toole had some really nice defense, ended up winning a scramble to get the final takedown, getting that tech fall. So overall, I mean, it's not going to make you over the moon, but they took care of business. Cam Steed was very impressive. O'Toole was very impressive. A very solid outcome for Colton Hawks as well. People that kind of underwhelmed a little bit, Edmond, obviously anytime you're going up against a big wrestler like that, right, former national champion, you're probably not going to win, but would like to see him at least be a little bit more aggressive, not be as passive. That was an issue at times last year. Logan Joffrey looking like he's still kind of getting up to speed, although he did a good job to avoid the upset. And then Cade Moore just, ran out of gas or whatever it was, switch kind of flipped between that first and second period and got dominated for the final 4 minutes of that match. So some pluses and minuses, but it's going to be really interesting to see where this team is next Saturday when they host the TigerStyle Invite in Kansas City at Staley High School.
Will you be there?
No.
No.
It is in Kansas City. It is, I would have to find a way to get there. And B, it's the same day as the Oklahoma game. So I will be watching from my apartment on Flow Wrestling. And also, one other note for Mizzou Wrestling. Big news came out yesterday, officially added to the calendar for the schedule for Mizzou, something that we thought might be able to happen. And now it's confirmed. Mizzou is going to be facing Penn State, the elite dynasty in college wrestling, in Nashville over winter break at the collegiate duels.
Interesting. That'll be a nice task for them. see where their season's going.
The big one to watch is going to be at 174. It's going to be Keegan O'Toole and Levi Haynes, who bumped up to 174 as well for Penn State. They're currently ranked first and second at the weight class. So a possible preview of the national title match.
Man. As for the TigerStyle Invite, who all did they face there?
So it is going to be, from what I remember, Purdue, Maryland, Little Rock, and there may be 1 or 2 more. I would have to go back and check. But those, I think, those are kind of like the big headliners of the tournament.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Matthew. And then now we will go to Abigail's update about cross country, where the team just wrapped up their SEC championships, and the men took 5th, and the women took 13th. So the 5th place finish, really awesome, lots of personal records. So Abigail will insert an update there about those performances.
Hi, Rocket. My name is Abigail Kleptoskis. I'm the cross-country and track and field beat reporter. I am on the quad for a little extra special location for today's update. Here's everything you missed in the distance world for the Tigers this week. Last Friday, the Tigers went down to College Station and competed at the SEC Cross Country Championships. The men had their best team and individual finish since 2021. The men took 5th place, honoring Ryder James' prediction earlier this season, and Drew Rogers led the Tigers for the 2nd time. He shaved over 30 seconds off his personal best and was not the only Tiger to do so. 7 of their 10 runners earned personal bests by like a long shot. And then also, that finish was far improved based on their SEC preseason ranking, which had them finishing at 9th place. On the women's side, no surprise there, Rahel Bromell led for the Tigers again. She took lucky number 13th overall, the highest individual finish by a Missouri woman since 2020, and the fastest time by a Missouri woman. She finished sub 20 minutes in the 6K, which is the first time to do so since Sarah Chapman recorded that time in 2020. Now, as for the women's team, They did not complete their preseason ranking nearly as well. They were seeded at, I believe, 9th overall in the preseason ranking, finished 13th. But to Nicole Lowe's credit, she took second for the Tigers again. She has been Missouri's metronome all season long and just kept really consistent paces. And against such a talented, competitive national field, that's impressive. Now we turn our sights onto the Midwest region, which will determine if the Tigers are able to send any runners to the national competition. Right now, it's looking like breaking 20 is going to be the magic number for Rahel to go back to the national championship. Not many people have done so in the Midwest region, only a handful of runners on every team. In order to earn an auto bid, you have to either be in the top 2 teams, which will not happen for Missouri, or be the next 4 qualifying runners who are not a part of those 2 teams. In other words, right now it's looking like the Midwest region is going to be dominated by OSU and Northwestern and ISU. So we are cheering for Oklahoma State or Iowa State to score as many runners in the top 15 as possible, opening up other spots for non-affiliated runners like Rahel to slot in. But I will have far more details on all of the qualifying logistics as this week gets closer. For now, that's my update. Bye, guys.
Just a little bit on gymnastics. I know Dylan and I had talked before about, like, you want to get something out sooner and then other things interfere and it keeps you from getting things done, which was the case on my gymnastics piece I just put out yesterday that was a result of a press conference in early October and attending a public inter-squad on October 12th. So I finally put out notes about that. I did intend to add in notes from the donor inter-squad on Saturday. However, I didn't end up attending. So I was like, well, guess I should just put this out anyway. So I encourage people to check that out. The next public inter-squad meet will be a week from Saturday, November 16th. We don't have a time yet. I do know it's at the Tiger Performance Center. And also coming up for me this week, another long-awaited piece that I'd been working on Helen Hu's comeback, with quotes from her and Shannon on her return to the Tigers. So that would be it for our out-of-season updates that I know about. One other thing, now that we are in November, that fans will need to remember is that the clear bag policy is going to be in effect. Now I'm starting to cough again. So that's going to be at all games starting this week. So starting with the game on women's opener on Thursday, you have to have clear bags.
Quick shameless plug. If you can't get there on Thursday, I will be calling the game for KCOU 88.1 FM.
Nice. Thank you, Matthew. So, yep, you'll have to have your clear bags. I need to make sure that my mom remembers to bring hers. So they're doing that going forward. One last thing before I get out of here, please head to Rock M Nation and support the work of so many student journalists. And now I'm dying. Some really amazing other writers as well. Last week we put out 50 pieces, and during a bye week we put out 50 pieces of writing, which is crazy. You can also support us by subscribing to this podcast, leaving a 5-star review. Love to see some comments in the YouTube, nice ones only. I didn't even get any suggestions for cough drops last time, or like favorite Halloween candy. Like, we were just really pandering to the masses, hoping to get some comments, and no one said anything. It was very rude. But anyway, you can subscribe to our subscription service, rockm.plus. It is super cheap, only $5 a month. And you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Karen Steger. Matthew is at M_Gustafson27. Dylan is at Dylan R. Heinrich. Quentin is at Quentin Corpuel. Oh my God. Rory is at Rory Whetstone7. And Abigail, not here, is at Abigail_clap with a K. And don't forget to go vote on Tuesday. If you haven't already done that, could be the most important election of our lifetimes, you guys. And if you're registered in Boone County, you can come out and see me at Memorial Union, because that is the campus's designated central polling place, and I will be there working all day. If you come and see me, maybe bring me some coffee or a Pepsi or something, or just say hi. I'll just take a hello as well. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. And MIZ.
Z-O-U.
Yeah, everybody else was.
Quentin, you have to respond. You can't just wave.
ZOU. Sorry, I've been trying to not say that.
We're back.
He's new here. He's new.
We'll do better next time, folks. We'll do better next time.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.